Tonight on Dateline, we're in Jamaica, where colonialism still casts a long shadow.
How many enslaved people would have been on this estate?
This was part of a much larger estate, and they had over 2,000 slaves here.
With a new king on the British throne comes a revived republic debate.
You have stolen and benefited, and now we want back what we have earned.
Has Jamaica decided it's time to break up with Britain? And will Australia be next?
That moment when we step out into the world as our true selves, that's going to be one of the most powerful moments in our entire history.
Good morning, Jamaica. Good morning, world. So the next song I want to play for you, it's the unofficial national anthem of Jamaica. Let's have a listen right now.
Help me big up Jamaica, the land of wood and water. The system might not proper, but we love the food and the culture. Whoa, can't you see the beauty of this country? Me never know a serious thing until me reach a foreign. So what a nice place to live.
Tony Rebel is a reggae music star, cultural activist, and a radio talk show host.
My special guest today from way down under is Darren Mara. What are you doing in Jamaica?
We're here to talk to both sides of this debate about whether Jamaica should become a republic.
It's clear what side of the debate Tony is on.
A new king is in England. Wow, interesting times we're living in. It's a time when we do not feel as if we want to still maintain the relationship with London. We want to break away from the Westminster system. We want to become a republic. Who say that? Say yay. A lot of people's hands are up in the air. Yes, soon and very soon, we will become a republic.
But some Jamaicans aren't quite ready to relinquish ties to the crown.
Nice to finally meet you after all this time.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming to discuss the question of republic at something that couldn't be any more English if it tried, cricket.
Well, it's just as bit West Indian as it is British. Let's be honest.
Yeah, true. Should we have a seat and have a chat?
Sure.
Inspired by monarchists in other Commonwealth realms, Jason Green created the Caribbean Monarchists League.
Now that Queen Elizabeth has passed away and the republic debate is firmly on the agenda here in Jamaica, do you fear Jamaica might lose its ties to the crown?
Yes, and there's a reason why. There is often this perception out there that patriotism means that you have to support a republican form of government. But to me, patriotism means supporting whatever is in the best interest of your country. And as a monarchist, I believe that retaining the constitution we have now is in the best interest of Jamaica.
So what's your best argument for why Jamaica should keep the king?
The stability of the system that we have now. The Republican argument is that we get rid of the king, have a president, and our person will move forward to becoming a developed country. That's what has been sold to us. The problems that we have in this country are so close to home, our economy, for example.
Is it your belief that the Jamaican people have been sold a lie?
Is it my belief? Yes, it is my belief.
Jason and other monarchists say Jamaica is already a troubled country, and breaking away from the crown simply brings more uncertainty. But the government plans to hold a referendum before 2025. And current polls say a little more than 50% support leaving the monarchy. For those on the Republican side, it's the only way to grow beyond the legacies of British rule, which they say broke Jamaica.
So this is the Greenwood Great House.
It is indeed.
How old is this estate?
Started in 1780, completed by 1800.
Wow, so quite old, over 200 years old.
Yes, definitely.
Shall we have a tour of the house?
Definitely.
Thank you. So how many enslaved people would have been on this estate?
This was part of a much larger estate, and they had over 2,000 slaves here
2,000?
on 84,000 acres of land.
And was that at one time or over years?
At one particular time, they were the largest plantation owners.
A British colony since 1655, Jamaica filled the royal coffers with profits from sugar plantations for centuries, all off the back of the slave trade. Greenwood is one of Jamaica's few surviving estate houses. Most were burned to the ground during the slave rebellions of the 1830s.
Immediately you can see opulence and grandeur, wealth.
Oh, yes, yes.
So the family that owned this house and the estate, how did they make their money?
From sugar.
Sugarcane.
Also from rum. And the main source was from sugar.
I see.
Sugar was king. This is an exceptionally rare map of Africa from 1626. Even the Atlantic Ocean was called the Ethiopian Ocean here. That's a Flemish servant cupboard with some Royal Crown Derby pieces on display. The table and chairs are Regency, so the striped couch. The lamps are American in origin, they're known as teardrop lamps. The rug is Chinese in origin.
Among the antiques are relics of an uncomfortable past that Bob says continue to haunt the house.
Well, as the story goes, the servant you see here died 2 years before the photograph was taken.
You just gave me goosebumps.
Greenwood largely served as an entertainment house, hosting grand balls.
It took us about 8 months to get this piece working, but it was really worth the effort as the sound is now perfect.
But reminders of slavery still linger.
It's incredible to think that all this was inside, all this wealth and value, whilst outside there were countless people, poverty, people toiling to maintain this wealth.
It exists to this day, not necessarily in Jamaica, but wherever there's wealth, there's poverty nearby, usually. One is living off the other, you know.
I'm finding it hard to get my head around what might be a degree of cognitive dissonance in the fact that this was a house owned by a white family that enslaved black people, and what that must feel like for you to occupy the space.
But the whole world was ruled and enslaved to some degree. Should we burn the world down as a revenge? I don't think so. I'm hoping eventually that the Jamaicans will come through a house like this and be proud that it's part of our history. You don't make your history, though. You have the art in saying it.
So, what are your feelings on the monarchy today?
One needs to be in charge of his own yard, definitely.
For Republican advocates, being in charge means not only taking back control, but holding the British accountable.
Hi guys.
You know, it's not that we're asking for a handout. We're saying you have reaped the benefits for 500 years or more, right? We're saying you have stolen and benefited, and now we want back what we have earned. We want back what we have earned to benefit our people.
Opal Palmer-Adissa is a poet and a leading voice in the Republican movement. She took a stand against a recent royal visit. With Buckingham Palace some 7,000 kilometres away, royal visits have been a way for the monarchy to maintain their connection. Royals William and Kate marked the Queen's Platinum Jubilee with a visit to Jamaica in 2022. But for many, it just reminded them of a dark history. Opal banded together with other Republicans like Professor Rosalie Hamilton. They wrote a letter to Prince William demanding an apology from the royals for centuries of slavery.
one part of the letter said, "We see no reason to celebrate 70 years of the ascension of your grandmother to the British throne because her leadership and that of her predecessors have perpetuated the greatest human rights tragedy in the history of humankind. During her reign on the throne, your grandmother has done nothing to redress and atone for the suffering of our ancestors that took place during her reign and or during the entire period of the British trafficking of Africans, enslavement, indentureship, and colonization."
Why is it that in Jamaica, people who wear their hair naturally are discriminated against in school? Why is it that in Jamaica, a predominantly black nation, that, poor people who are black don't have land when their ancestors have built the British Empire?
We have a judicial system in which we still go to Britain for a highest court of appeal.
So we don't just want an apology, because to a certain extent that is easy. We want to be compensated for the labor that our ancestors did that in fact enrich Britain and the British Empire.
During Prince William's visit, he conveyed a deep sadness and regret. But Opal didn't get the apology she was hoping for.
I want to express my profound sorrow. Slavery was abhorrent, and it should never have happened.
Do you feel like you're really at the forefront of correcting the wrongs of a 400-year-long story?
I think we're at the back end. We're following our ancestors. And I want to put it that way because this is not new. It's not a new conversation. In fact, it's a 528-year conversation ever since Columbus came to Jamaica.
It's not just about compensation. It's about establishing Jamaica's identity beyond Britain, a movement that's spreading throughout the Commonwealth.
I also think there is a kind of international energy that's happening, so that you have for us not just the Caribbean, you also have Africa, you also have Asia. All of us now are speaking the same language and are pointing the same finger at the British Empire and what they've done to all of us.
Back in Australia, the Republican movement has also been stirring.
Hi, Craig.
You good?
Thanks for meeting me at this rather symbolic statue of Queen Victoria.
Yeah, it really
And Craig
is.
Foster is at the coalface.
So what is it about this royal family that makes you feel countries like Jamaica and Australia should go their own way?
Well, what's changed, I think, in probably the last 20 years, and accelerated in the last few, is the journey that Australia's now taking with First Nations and listening and coming to new understandings on our history. If we look at, our silence and our denial around the reality of dispossession and theft of the country, what that's done is that's essentially kept us chained to that moment in 1788, all of us.
Craig talks about reconciliation and emancipation, but I want to know why he thinks becoming a republic can help that process.
So statues like this of Captain Cook have been a bit of a focal point of anger on days like Australia Day. How do you feel becoming a republic would help address some of that anger?
We need full independence to grow into our contemporary skin. Genuine multiculturalism, in my view, means absolute equality and access for every cultural background, ethnicity and race in Australia. While ever we have a monarchy as the head of state of this country, then that's not real.
In 1999, Australia held a referendum that asked the public whether Australia should become a republic.
Join us on November 6th.
Vote yes for our republic.
If you want to vote for the president, vote no to the politician's republic.
But the referendum failed to win sufficient support.
The 1999 referendum was an endorsement of republicanism. Australia wanted a republic. What Australia didn't want was the form of republic put forward to the referendum by the Constitutional convention, which was what Australians saw, rightly or wrongly, as a politician-led head of state or republic.
Many Australians have a real natural, genuine affection for the Crown. And in this park, there's a war memorial which commemorates soldiers who died for some of those ideals. What does the Republic movement mean for people who feel that way?
Every aspect of Australian history has its own place. That's not to say that it has to be respected or loved. That's a matter for you and a matter for every Australian, for each of us to decide.
In Jamaica, a lot of the discussion inevitably comes to the concept of reparations for crimes of the past. Do you see that as part of the discussion here in Australia?
There's no question that I think once we get through this process, then all of these discussions, certainly around apology and reparation that we're seeing in so many other former colonies, are a natural part of that journey.
So what are the next steps in this process?
The Albanese government has proposed a referendum in their proposed second term of government. This year, the biggest challenge for the Republic movement is to start the conversation with Australia, but in a way that doesn't step in any way in front of First Nations having this really critically important conversation around the voice. By the time we come 24, 25, 26 to a Republic referendum, I think we're going to be much better as a nation at holding complexity in a conversation. That moment when we step out into the world as our true selves, that's going to be one of the most powerful moments in our entire history.
While it's still early days for Australia, Jamaica's parliament has already made moves towards becoming a republic. But to the advocates waiting for change, progress seems slow. So I've come here to the office of the Prime Minister to get some answers. Minister, thanks for speaking with us. Where is the government at in this process of becoming a republic?
We are far advanced. In fact, we've had many attempts in the past. I myself have been surprised in looking at just how much work has been done, including a draft bill that actually exists to amend the Constitution to replace now His Majesty the King with a president of Jamaican origin. Work is far advanced.
What guarantees can you give that Jamaica will actually become a republic?
I understand the concerns, because so many announcements have been made in the past. People are really wondering, will it happen this time? But I can only give the assurance that the work is being done. And I will, in short order, announce to the Parliament of Jamaica timelines that I hope to meet with the cooperation of all who are involved.
What do you hope can be achieved by setting this new course for Jamaica?
We really have to take stock. We really have to redefine what it means to be Jamaican. What do we stand for? But I believe the people can do it with the right guidance and the right leadership.
The Republic debate is deeply connected to these questions of identity, how countries see themselves beyond Britain. A large part of Jamaica's identity, history and politics is held in its music. From the songs of runaway slaves to reggae sensation Bob Marley. Jamaican music has long been a form of political protest and cultural expression. I've come to this bar to ask people what role reggae plays in the country's future.
Reggae, you can't say reggae without Jamaica, right? You can't say Jamaica without reggae.
It has been one of its first modes of expression. Was about that even on the plantation, beating the drums and singing songs within, even the Maroons would sing songs in a language that would reinforce the value of fighting and resisting.
I think the adversities that we've gone through is a part of our music, but it's not just about the struggle, it's about the joy.
Jamaican music is the backbone of our identity. is like the music is created out of identifying who we really are, and we spread that across our nation and to the world. From being a rude boy to intellect, to a dancer, to a musician, to a farmer.
Do you feel like Jamaica becoming a republic is the end of the story and the beginning of a new one?
It won't be the end of the story, the colonial story, but at least we will start on a new trend, and it will help us to carve our own niche into the world as a republic. So for the future, it is good.